In this week's Parashat Tazria, we're going to continue to discuss the laws of Tumah v'Tahora, different impurity and purity laws. And in particular, the bulk of this week's Parasha, as well as next week's Parasha, Metzorah, is going to discuss the affliction of tzarat, what's called a Nega tzarat. Nega means affliction. Nun gimel ayin, tzarat, some type of skin condition. There's 4 different types of skin conditions in the parasha. We'll go in detail to discuss the 4 types of tzarat afflictions and how it works and how the color changes. Okay, what I want to try to do with this Dvar Torah is try to get very deep. We'll try to get a little bit mystical as well. Be'ezrat Hashem. Everything I want to say right now is not based on me. It's based on different shiurim that I heard, particularly from a rabbi here in Beit Shemesh, Rabbi Haber, who gave a pretty deep class. If anybody wants the link to the longer hour-long version, I could send it to you. But we're going to try to get a little bit deep today. So the parasha starts off in the first aliyah when it talks about the Metzorah, this person that gets this skin affliction. The skin starts to change, and there's a Nega, there's an affliction, and you have to bring it over to the Kohen. And the Kohen looks at it, and he judges with his eyes if it's a tzarat affliction. If it's not, there are certain cases where it's not clear, so they have to wait and bring it back to the Kohen, quarantine him, and based on what the Kohen sees, he'll either be defined as a for sure a person who's afflicted with the Nega tzarat, or he'll be tahor, he'll be pure. And if a person does get tzarat, bad stuff. Well, tzarat means you get kicked out of all the machanot, out of all the camps. So you have to leave the Kohen, the Levi, the Israel. You're kicked out totally to be by yourself in isolation. And from a more spiritual perspective, you're very, very far from the Beit HaMikdash, from the Mishkan. And I know Rabbi Kana shiurim on this as well, that when it comes to impurity, one of the biggest effects of impurity is that you can't get close to Hashem. You can't get anywhere near the temple or in the desert near the Mishkan, and it's like really kicking you out as far as possible from being spiritual. Okay, so that's the general idea. We have ourselves tzarat, the Nega tzarat. There's 4 different types. Okay, now let's get deep. So it says in Sefer Yetzirah in Perek Bet, the second chapter of Sefer Yetzirah. I've never read Sefer Yetzirah. It's a very deep book. It's one of the earliest Kabbalistic books that some even say was written by Abraham Avinu. So a deep Sefer talking about the different letters in this chapter. I have no clue what it was saying over there, except for this one line that a lot of people like to quote. So in the second chapter, it says as follows: Ein betova lemala mi oneg, ve'ein bera'a lemata mi nega. There's nothing better, there's nothing more tov, more good than oneg. Oneg means pleasure, like oneg Shabbat. So there's nothing more pleasurable than, or more good than pleasure than oneg. Ve'ein bera'a lemata minega. And there's nothing lower, there's nothing least pleasurable, there's nothing worse than nega. So the most pleasurable will be oneg, and the least pleasurable will be nega. Okay, so the famous Dvar Torah that people say in this week's parasha is they look very closely, and if you look at the words oneg and nega, oneg being the pleasure, and nega being the affliction, they're the exact same letters. And similar to what we've been discussing with the Metzorah, where you need the ayin of the Kohen to look at it, the letters nun gimel ayin for nega are the same as ayin nun gimel. What's the only difference? The difference is, where do you put the ayin? Where do you put an ayin? Also literally means eye. So where do you put the letter ayin? Where do you put your eye? How do you look at things in life? And it's a real lesson in emunah, and realizing that everything that God does for us is for good, so that even the negas, even the afflictions in our life are really no different than oneg. It all comes from God. Everything that God does is great. And people will speak about this a lot on this week's parasha, that oneg and nega is all in the eyes of the beholder, is how you view things in life. It's a deep idea. I'm sure you've all heard of this idea. That ultimately everything God does is for the good, and it's all how you look at things in life. Okay, beautiful idea. Now let's try to get a little bit deeper. So if you open up the Torah, go all the way back to Parashat Bereshit. You go back to the creation of the world, second perek in the Torah. And in the second perek, in the second aliyah, God recounts how He created man. And it says, "Vayitzer Adonai Elohim et Adam afar min ha'adama," and Hashem creates man from the dust of the earth. He blows into him a soul of life, and Hashem then plants Gan be'eden mikedem. He plants this garden in Eden to the east, and He takes man and He places man into this garden. And then Hashem, Vayitzmach Hashem Elohim, Hashem makes all these beautiful trees that are beautiful, pleasurable to look at, tasty to eat. You have the Etz HaChaim, you have the Etz HaDat Tovara, you have the main fruits, the beautiful garden. It's a paradise. And then the pasuk says, "Benar yotze me'Eden lashkot et hagan," and a river comes forth from Eden to water the garden. And from there, it splits off into 4 different rivers. And those rivers, we know some of those. Those are the Euphrates, the Tigris. We have the other rivers that come out of there that go out to the actual world. So, and actually, there's a beautiful Midrash Rabbah, which we're going to get back to, that they say that those 4 rivers that symbolize the world outside of Garden of Eden actually symbolize the 4 Galiot, the 4 exiles that we're in, how ultimately we're going to be exiled from the garden and be sent out into the actual world, into the exiles, into all the suffering we have to do, and that already starts after the punishment for beating the Etzadat. Okay, that is second parak in Bereshit. If you open up the Gemara in Berachot, in Daf Lamed Daled Amud Bet 34b, the Gemara over there is discussing the infinite reward. What's it going to be like in Olam Haba? What's it going to be like in the future? And it starts to bring a couple Pesukim. And it quotes a Pasuk, Mai Ain Lorata. And they quote a Pasuk that... and the Gemara quotes a Pasuk from Yeshayahu that says... Ayin lo ra'ata Elohim zulatecha. No eyes except yours, O God, has seen. So the Gemara asks, "My ayin lo ra'ata." What does it mean that nobody has seen? Only God sees, nobody else sees. And the Gemara is talking now in a mashal, it's talking in an allegory, and it's talking about the infinite reward. And the second opinion in the Gemara of what is this thing that nobody has seen except for God, says Rabbi Shmuel bar Nahmani, he says as follows, Ze Eden, shelo shata bo ein Kol Bria. This is Eden, that Ein Kol Bria, that no eye of any creation has ever seen Eden. So the Gemara says, Shema Tomar, Adam Rishon Hechanaya. Maybe you should ask, where was Adam? Isn't Adam in Eden? So it answers the Gemara, no, Adam is Bagan. He's in the garden. Shema Tomar, Hu Gan Hu Eden. Maybe you're going to tell me that Gan is Eden? Talmud Lomar, the Gemara quotes the pasuk we read in Bereshit, V'nahar yotzem Eden lashkot et Gan, and the river leaves from Eden to water the garden. Gan lehod ve'Eden lehod. So says the Gemara that we have what's called the Garden of Eden, and we have what's called Eden. And the Garden of Eden is not the exact same thing. And we learned that from the pasuk that we have Eden. Then we have a river that flows from Eden that ultimately comes to water the Gan, and mankind, Adam was put in the garden, in the Gan, in the garden, to enjoy from the beautiful fruits, the beautiful pleasures that Hashem created. But Adam can never actually see Eden. He can never go all the way back and see that source, but rather it's only from the source of Eden, this river is going to come down to the Gan. Okay, now let's get deep. Says the Tikkunei HaZohar, says the Kabbalah, that if you look at this pasuk, that the river flows from Eden to bring water to the Gan. So you notice something interesting. The source that nobody could see, Ayin Lo Rata, the source is Eden, and from that source, this river flows down, this Nahar comes down to the Gan. If you take the words Eden, Nahar, and Gan in that order, Ayin, Nun, Gimel, what do you get? You get Oneg. So the word pleasure, this deep pleasure we've been discussing, the great simchas of the world, the Oneg, it's even higher than simcha, the Oneg of the world, it actually stands for Eden, Nahar, Gan. And if we look a little bit closer, if we said that before that the word Eden and Nega are the same letters, so then actually Nega is also Nahar, Gan, and Eden, just in the wrong order. Okay, so what does that mean? So the idea, especially if we go back to that Gemara in Berachot, is Eden is some kind of analogy, a mashal, to something so awesome, so great, an Olam Haba, or something even greater that we can't see. You know, Eden is this part, when Hashem creates the world, these are the esoteric secrets of the Tzimtzum, of how Hashem contracted himself and creates this physical world that we have. Eden kind of symbolizes one of those earlier stages that we can't see. But what do we see? We see the river that comes out. Interesting idea. Google search this. There's a thing called headwaters. Whenever you have a river, or many times when you have a river in the world, you can't find the initial source for the river. Like all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this river starts. It's a cool idea. Look it up on Google, headwaters. River starts out of nowhere. It's like you have this big gushing river, but the original source, all of a sudden, it just happens. And it's a beautiful mashal for what exactly happens in the Garden of Eden. We have this Eden, we have this way that Hashem creates this great spirituality. Somehow He creates this world. We can't understand it, but from the Nahar, all of a sudden this river comes out, and this river will then water the Gan, and we can hang out in the Gan and enjoy from the pleasures that actually come from Eden. So we can't get to Eden, we can't understand Eden, but we can enjoy the pleasures, at the very end when it comes to us in more finished form. So I heard that this is from Rabbi Haber, that this metaphor of Oneg, of Eden Nahar Gan, can actually be compared to a different idea that we hear from the Kabbalah of Yisrael Oraita Kuchabrichu Chadhu, that the Jewish people, the Torah, and God are all one. So I always thought that meant, we're all one, look at this connection, look at this achdut, and look at how great this is. But no, it's actually, we are all one, but only in the order of starting from God, going through the Torah, coming down to us. Or if we want to get up to God, us going through the Torah to try to maybe relate back to Hashem. But you have to have this order of Hashem, Torah, and then us. And that's the idea of Oneg as well in the metaphor. You have Eden Nahar Gan, you have Hashem, so to speak, or Hashem's initial revelations. Then you have the Nahar. We know the river always corresponds to Torah, a lot of times the deeper Torah, but this river, this water, the Torah, that comes down to the Gan where we are. And if you have that connection, we can try to start understanding Hashem a little bit, but we have to always realize we're at the bottom and Hashem is at the top. Another idea that Rabbi Haber says over there is that the concept of Chabad, of Chokhmah, Binah, B'Da'at, the different ways to understand Hashem, also has to kind of follow that order of Chokhmah, Binah, then eventually getting down to the Da'at, to the deeper understandings. And if you move around, if you go back to our Oneg idea, if you move the Eden, the part that we're not allowed to see, this is the holier parts, the Ayin, if we mess with the Ayin and try to get to it in a way that's inappropriate, we mess with the order, we're going to get Nega. We're going to get these afflictions. We're going to get the more difficult times because we're messing up. In the Garden of Eden, the exact same thing happens. Hashem creates this etzadat of tov and ra, and it's a mix, whatever actually the etzadat is, but it's the dat. You can't go for the dat right away. There's chokhmah, there's binah, there's a methodology. When Adam reached for this tree, whatever that sin actually was, whether he was trying to be like God, trying to understand Hashem, he wants the da'at. It's too soon. You're not ready. You can't get that da'at. You're not following the order. You're jumping for the ayin. You're jumping for the eden. You're jumping for the da'at. You're eating from this da'at. You're not supposed to have it right now. And that's going to be the sin of moving the ayin into the wrong place. And now what's going to happen? We're going to have to be kicked out into the exile, into these four galiyot out there, these four rivers. We're out there into the four exiles we're in right now. Fascinating. Chazal also tell us we have the four negat sara'ats also correspond to the four exiles. Again, it's the same idea because that is what the exile is. And that's part of being kicked out of the Garden of Eden. The Metzora is kicked out of the camp, kicked out of the temple, kicked out of God, kicked out of that closeness. Again, in whatever spiritual kind of way, metaphoric, physical, any literal, any way you want to take it. But that's part of the depth. Also a cool idea, though, is just to realize that ultimately, these rivers and these gardens that go out there, they also come from Eden. It's true that it's the Nega, it's the negative parts of life, it's the afflictions, it's the hard stuff, it's the exiles. But even the exiles, ultimately their source comes back from Eden. It's just much more physical, much more gashmi, and it comes down. Meaning Eden is this all achdut, this infinity of God, this oneness. But that's ultimately going to come down through the Nahar into things that are more concrete. In the more positive sense, it's going to come down from the oneness of God down to a simple beracha that we make on a fruit. But ultimately, that's even going to come down to the negative things we have in life into the nega, because it all really comes back from that one source, back to Hashem. So with this, we could maybe reinterpret the idea that we said in the Sefer Yetzirah, that it said Ein betova lemala mi oneg ve'ein bera'a lemata mi nega. There is nothing more. There's no more tova. Again, think etzadat over here, tovara. Those of you that that finished with Purim, think about the whole Purim thing as well, the adilo yada stuff. But okay, be'ein betova lemala me'oneg, ve'ein bera'a lemata minega. So instead of saying there's no greater pleasure than oneg and no least level pleasure than nega, maybe say a little bit more literally, like the words say, that the highest level of tov is the oneg when the order is the ayin in the beginning. When you have the eden, we have Hashem on top. That's the highest level possible. and there's nothing lower than the Nega. When ultimately we mess up with the order, it's still coming from that ultimate source of Eden. It's just we mess with the order, we get kicked out, we have to go far away. So that's the idea. Take with it as you want. Some deep stuff over here. B'ezrat Hashem, we give you beracha that we should have the Oneg Shabbat. I saw someone bring down that when it comes to Oneg Shabbat, we have this three tier thing. We said that Eden Nahargan, we have the 3 seudot on Shabbat, and Shabbat is this day to get back to the infinity. This me'ein olam haba, to try to get back to that Eden. We have those 3 meals for these three letters to try to connect us to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the real Oneg with Hashem. Shabbat Shalom.